saddened by the second police officer slain in the line of duty in the last 3 months. Nathaniel Taylor Jr., only 39 years old, passed away this weekend. During a search warrant, he was the victim of unfriendly fire by the alleged shooter, Lamar Cooper. Often we paint a grim picture of police officers, claiming that they're all crooked, sneaky, hot-headed, but all in all, they serve and protect. We call them first when danger lurks. Tonight, protectors under fire on Garrard McClendon Live. Welcome to Garrard McClendon Live. We all claim to have difficult jobs, but by far the most difficult has to be policing a community. We just lost the second on-duty police officer in the last 90 days. My guests tonight know firsthand that serving and protecting can become violent in an instant. Joining me tonight from Tribune Tower is Chicago police officer and father of Blair Holt, Ron Holt, and from Studio C, veteran Chicago police officer and chair of public safety at Calumet College of St. Joseph, Dr. Dean Angelo. Gentlemen, welcome to Garrard McClendon Live.
Thank you, Jamar.
You know, it's been a terrible weekend. We've got purple flags flying right now, but today I want to focus more on the human side of policing. But before we discuss the tragedy of a fallen officer, could you, Ron, explain the danger and complexity of serving warrants? You know, when an officer has to go out there and serve a warrant, explain the danger of that.
Well, the danger and the risk comes when you're developing information on a offender, drug trafficker, a gang member who may be storing. You have information, valid information that that person is storing weapons, illegal narcotics, illegal handguns. And when you say danger in it, there's a risk in everything, in every facet of being a street cop. You develop the information, you follow, you pay attention to the climate, to the neighborhood, with safety in mind as a first and foremost issue for not only yourself as a street cop, also for the safety of the citizens who live in that area. So safety is key, Garrard, to being effective, and keep in mind everything is a risk, and no situation, no search warrant execution is always perfect. Police officers that I know, that I've worked with, and we've served a lot of search warrants in my day being in the gang intelligence section, and we've gotten guns and drugs off the street, and there's always a risk. Each situation is isolated in and of itself and can present different obstacles to deal with. So in that situation, you can do what you have to do, what you need to do to be safe, to execute the search warrant, to have everyone in place, and still things can go eerily or at times tragically wrong.
Absolutely. You know, I want to bring in Dr. Dean Angelo from Calumet College of St. Joseph in on the discussion. You know, Dean, Ron Holt talks about the complexity and the risk involved in serving a warrant. Could you elaborate on that as well? You're a professor of public safety. What do you tell your students when it comes time to serve a warrant?
Well, warrants are always very tricky. Like he mentioned, no two warrants are the same. Could be the same building, could be for the same type of a narcotic, or if you're going for weapons, all those things could be similar, but you never know until you get to that door, and once you attempt to make entry, what's going to happen or be waiting for you on the other side.
Yeah. You know, Dean, earlier we discussed this briefly. Talk to me, man, about the red light scenario. We were talking about the routine traffic stop. You know, many of us outside of law enforcement or public safety, we call it a routine traffic stop. You want to elaborate on that? Well,
for people in the know, people that have done it, there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. Not in my book, not in my years of experience. The individual that you're curbing for maybe a red light or a stop sign, if he is a working guy or if he's just on a routine trip and blows the stoplight or goes through that stop sign without coming to a complete stop. If that's the case, you have an exchange and you speak to that individual, and that's one type of scenario. If that person has just left the scene of a crime, whether it be a burglary, a shooting, a murder, anything, he knows what he did, she knows what she did, and they definitely know who you are. The difference is, for the police officer, they never know who that person is behind the wheel. My son's a police officer for almost 2 years now, and I tell him, there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. You need to be ready.
Yeah. Officer Holt, let's talk about instinct or calculated judgment. I mean, when do you know when it's time to grab the firearm and release it from the holster?
Well, there is a time and place for that. If you feel like, as a police officer, that your safety or the life of you and your partner and your co-workers are jeopardized with the threat of bodily harm or the threat of death, in that an offender may be approaching you with a firearm. Each situation, again, is isolated in and of itself. Each situation presents different parables. So police officers are trained to take precautionary measures, approach with safety, with your eyes wide open, having a view of everything. Your training involves all of that. But as Professor Zing said earlier, Gerard, you do not know what is on the other side of the door. You do not know what you will be presented with on a traffic stop. Again, just to expound what he said, no traffic stop is routine, no search warrant is routine, and you deal with that. Those are the psychological things that a police officer deals with day in and day out, just putting on a uniform. You become a police officer, in essence, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Yeah, gentlemen, thanks for joining us on Garrard McClendon Live. We're going to continue the discussion. We're also going to go into the in-depth discussion of Nathaniel Taylor Jr., who lost his life, police officer in Chicago. Do you feel safe in your neighborhood? How is policing on your block? We're taking your phone call, 630-575-TALK. Ron Holt and Dean Angelo join the conversation. Garrard McClendon Live continues in 2.
It never happens, unfortunately, in law enforcement and police work. These things happen, and you're dealing with people that have no sense of respect for life.
It's been over 6 years since we've had an officer killed in the line of duty by gunfire. And now we've got 2 in 90 days, which is really hitting a lot of the members of the department, giving them pause to think.
That's Jody Weiss and William Donahue. CLTV.com/GML gets you to my blog. 630-575-TALK gets you in on the conversation. We've got Ron Holt and Dean Angelo. They join me with the discussion, talking about the police officer that was shot and killed over the weekend. I'm going to take some phone calls here shortly, gentlemen. Let me ask you this, though. When it comes to the police officers, do police officers want the public to feel intimidated, or is this a product of mass media?
No.
Let me go with Ron Holt first.
No, absolutely not, Gerard. There is no intimidation factor coming from the part of the police. The police are public servants. They are there to serve and protect the public. They function as an arm of the community to enforce laws when they are broken and committed. So I would say that unequivocally that the police officers are not out on the streets to intimidate, antagonize, or look the other way when crimes are being committed. Our focus as police officers is to serve and protect the citizens of the city of Chicago.
Yes, sir. Dean, you want to chime in on that? Because here's the deal. I mean, now as well as in the past, there have been several hip-hop songs that have blasted the police. I mean, you can look at NWA's work with Expletive the Police, and also Ice-T's work with Cop Killer. I mean, are police intimidating? I mean, Ron Holt says no. What do you say, Dean?
Well, I don't think it's their intention to be intimidating people. I think any police officer you could poll would much rather go to work have no major issues, never have to pull his gun, let alone use his gun, and get back home to his family.
Yeah.
No one goes to work with the plan or the idea like, who can I intimidate or harass today?
Yeah.
The media, not only the music and those venues as well, but if you look at some of our local newspapers over the course of the last several months, it was almost daily where there was some antagonistic or some anti-policing type of headline out there.
Yes.
And that sends a message to police officers that are out there doing their job. And
Right.
99% of them are doing their job credibly, and they're out there. How much more of this do we have to take?
That's
When is
right.
this going to stop?
That's right.
Why don't they talk about the good things we do?
Hey,
That's right. Ron, go ahead quickly, Ron, and then I'm going to go to the phone.
Really quick. Keep in mind that any municipality that has law enforcement services, police departments have you, all over America, remember the first job and the foundation of the police department is to enforce the laws. And they're also, keep in mind, Gerard, that they're also there to deal with the problems in the community.
Yes.
When we get what is called going to a job, getting called to a job, 99% of the time, Gerard, most of those police officers in those blue and white cars, those marked vehicles, they are going to deal with the problem and help to deal with the situation and bring some type of stability and peace to that situation.
I am so glad you clarified that, because what upsets me, Ron and Dean, is when people say, oh man, the police bother me, but you out there doing nefarious activities. I'm going to Martha. Martha, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment, Martha? Martha, what's your comment? Okay, I'm going to go to Dan. Dan, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. Is Dan there? What's your comment? Andre, you're on Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment? Andre, are you there? Andre, are you there? Okay, I'm going to come back. Gentlemen, let's look at the story. Nathaniel Taylor is the second officer slain this year. The Ashburn community, of course, mourns today. Lamar Cooper, the alleged shooter, 2 counts of burglary. He's a felon, 1 attempted murder charge. He was released from prison in 2004. They found drugs in this person's mouth and in his home. Now, according to WGN and CLTV, Lamar Cooper was sitting in a geo prison. He allegedly opened fire on police officers after Nathaniel Taylor Jr. and 3 narcotics officers tried to issue a warrant. Now, gentlemen, let me ask you this. Was it the right time of day to issue a warrant? From what I understand, it was very early in the morning. Is there a set time that a warrant should be issued?
Gerard, there's no set time that warrants are issued or executed. As far as there is a time frame as to when they have to be executed, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days from the time that the judge signs the warrant. Now, as far as executing physically on behalf of police officers a search warrant, that is contingent on what has been agreed upon by the team's sergeant, the team's lieutenant, the team's watch commander, the team's unit commander, and they all go into agreement as to what would be a good time to execute that search warrant.
Yes, Dean, you want to chime in on that, please?
Well, sure. It is all part of the big plan. Usually, the officers that secure the warrant itself, the ones with the knowledge and the undercover information, the CI that comes forward and gives that officer the information. Most of the warrants that I've ever been involved in, that officer that secured all the information, that gets the warrant and types it out, we kind of leave it up to that person on when we go, how we go, what's inside, what the doors look like, and it is part of a big discussion. The whole team gets together. It's a very precise plan.
Yeah. Hold tight, gentlemen. 630-575-TALK. Do you have a love-hate relationship with law enforcement, police officer, friend, or foe? Call me and voice your opinion. looks like bloggers are supporting the police department. Welcome back to Garrard McClendon Live. Blog me, CLTV.com/GML. Email me, CLTVtalk@Tribune.com. Call me, 630-575-TALK. Public safety is on the menu tonight. Your concerns, Chicago. As we go to the phones, I'm going to Lisa. Thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. Lisa, what's your comment?
My comment is that I think the police are doing an excellent job, but I think what the problem is that the police, the criminals get hold to guns that's worse than the police officers, and they'll be afraid to go up in the houses.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is that we have to stick together as being, neighborhoods, and like Mr. Holt said, we have to stick in there. I lost my nephew a couple months ago on 119th and Prairie, and it was sad that how kids can come in and just get guns. My nephew had a gun that was, and I turned him in, he had a gun that was as big as a light, a lamp. And the gangs are giving it to them.
Yeah.
And it's sad, and their parents is not doing anything.
Lisa, thank you so much for that phone call. We appreciate your courage as you call Garrard McClendon Live. Let me go back to Kitty. Kitty, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Hi, Gerard, and to your guest.
Hello.
I have a few comments. I'd like to say I agree that if you're committing criminal acts, the police should be all over you. I agree with that. But I have experienced myself where the police make stops and they're rude for no reason whatsoever. So, I don't know. I got a love-hate relationship, as you say, with the police. And I think, lastly, the police can restore their reputation with the public by walking the beat again and showing their friendly side to the community residents. Thank you.
Yes, Kitty, thank you so much for the phone call. I'm going to take one more here. Martha, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment, Martha?
Hi, my comment is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Make your comment. Make your comment.
Okay, my comment is that we need to, the thing is we need to understand that the police officers are part of our community.
You're out.
And by them being a part of our community, they're not just men dressed in blue or women dressed in blue. They're our sisters, they're brothers, and our mothers.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your comment. We appreciate that. Garrard McClendon Live continues. Police under fire. Do you help your protectors or hinder them? Cooperating with authorities as Garrard McClendon Live continues. I've got Dean Angelo. I've got Ron Holt with me. Hold tight. We'll be back in a moment. We're talking about the difficulty of policing tonight on Garrard McClendon Live. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show. I've got to read this and ask you to give me some final comments here. Family members claim that the alleged shooter was praying while this took place. And one resident, Terrell Murray, a neighbor of Cooper's, said, "We thought he was the good guy in the neighborhood. We thought he was working for us." Monique Bond, police spokesperson, says, quote, while still inside the vehicle, the suspect opened fire on police officers. Now, gentlemen, give me a comment about this. We thought he was a nice guy. This guy's a felon. This guy just was released from prison 2004, 2 counts of burglary, 1 attempted murder charge. I mean, are communities afraid to snitch? What's going on? Let me go with Dean Angelo first. Make it quick, Dean, then I'm going to Ron Holt.
Well, I think a lot of communities have a difficult time coming forward. The one caller said she turned in her nephew that had a weapon. That's a unique thing. It would be nice if more of that happened. Rather than give credence to those stories, I'd just like to give condolences to Officer Taylor's family, his loved ones, co-workers, and all the other officers that knew him. And
yes.
I would much rather end on that note.
Yes, sir. Ron Holt, comments.
Yeah, first things first, you have to ask yourself, what is a person like that being a convicted felon doing with a firearm in his possession? And that speaks volumes of his intent. It is unfortunate that his intent was exacted on anyone, especially a Chicago police officer. And I also, on behalf of the Chicago Police Department, PurposeOverPain.org, and the Blair Holt Alliance Against Gun Violence, would definitely like to express our deepest sympathies and condolences and prayers to the family of Nathaniel Taylor, his wife, his child. Our hearts go out to you. We know, and I know, how difficult it is and what it's like to endure the loss of a loved one, be it a child or a family member, a loved one, anyone close to you. I know it's difficult, and they have to get through this time, and our prayers and our support is with them all the way.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on Garrard McClendon Live. Dean Angelo from Calumet College of St. Joseph, the Crimson Wave, and Ron Holt, police officer and the father of Blair Holt. Thanks to my guests, Officer Ron Holt and Dr. Dean Angelo.
Thank you.
Angelo, as we continue, as we mourn the loss of Officer Nathaniel Taylor Jr., let us not forget that men and women throughout our cities risk their lives every day to protect us. Nate Taylor Jr., thank you for your service. We appreciate you. That's Garrard McClendon Live. Keep your head up, and remember, always be encouraged.
Ask or ask? Donda's rules, Sue choose. McClendon.